What it do, y'all? It's your brother, man, from the motherland, coming to you guys live again and again. My apologies. I got kicked off I YouTube, and I got kicked off Rumble. The only thing that was functioning right now was Facebook, and I had to turn that off. Too much information being held, and I can't just put it out on Facebook. But anyway, we're gonna dive straight into it. Um, yeah, this is what they do, but we continue doing the works. Ain't no stopping what we doing over here. All right. So let us continue, man. For those that don't know, man, we posing the question: are we Hebrews or Bantus? Jews or Bantus? Which one are we? We're gonna dive deep. I'm gonna play a video after this to show contradiction within the biblos. Sit back, relax, let's continue. And again, my apologies, YouTube, Rumble, they just kicked me off for no reason. But we're gonna continue. Let us continue. Let's go. Got me tight right now, right? So you guys know the verdict. All right. We're going to do the introduction. The presentation address the critical questions of the ancestral origins of American Africans of Hebrew or Bantu descent. We will analyze the distinction between these two groups and ultimately explore the evidence regarding the ancestral lineage of American Africans, right? The definition of the two, okay? The term Bantu refers to a group of socialistic people in Africa who speaks Bantu languages. The Bantu expansion, which began around 3,000 years ago, saw these people spread from Niger-Congo region to much of the sub-Saharan Africa. Bantu people share linguistic, cultural, and historical ties. Examples of Bantu-speaking people include the Zulu, the Kayuwu, and the Shona, and many others. And again, if I butchered anything, my apologies. We just going through it, and on top of that, I'm super furious right now. Let's go. Okay. Definition of a Jew. A Jew is traditionally defined as a person who practiced Judaism. I repeat, practice Judaism, a Abrahamic religion rooted in the covenant made between God, Yahweh, and Abram, Isaac, and Jacob. Historically, Jews are associated with the ancient Israelites and the kingdom of Judah and Israel. Their origin traced back to the Middle East. Traced back to the Middle East. Traced back to the Middle East, particularly modern day Israel, Palestine, and the surrounding regions. Okay, let us continue. The converters. Now, these are the men that converted. See if I can pop my face up. These are the men that converted Islam, religion, the people into these religions. Let me put myself out there. Yeah, there we go. Okay, these are the individuals who did the converting, just so you know. Okay, now William S. Crowdy is the founding father. Him and Frank Cherry are the founding fathers when it comes to black people believing that they are Hebrew Israelites. Okay, William S. Crowdy, Frank Cherry, and Albert Christian was a student under William S. Crowdy, who was given a mission to go to South Africa, not Africa, not the west of Africa, not the east or the north, but mainly South Africa, to convert the South African people into Judaism. But these are the converters right here. Let's start off. This is an image of William S. Crowdy. Now, quick breakdown. William Saunders Crowdy was an African American preacher and religious leader who founded the Church of God and Saints of Christ, one of the first organizations to do what? To teach that African Americans were the descendants of ancient Israelites. Okay, Crowdy's work in the late 19th and early 20th centuries spread the idea of what? Black Judaism across the United States and to Africa. He emphasized reconnecting African Americans with their biblical heritage, blending elements of Judaism. Listen carefully, people, as I say this nice and slow. One more again. Blending the elements of Judaism with African traditions and Christian influences. Okay? Blending the elements of Judaism with African traditions and Christian influences. What does that sound like today? Anyway, we're going to continue. Crowley's teachings inspire many communities to explore their identities and spiritual roots. Let us continue. Here is King Alfonso I. Now, this image that you see King Alfonso have on, this is what you call your Spaniards outfits. This is not El Kebulan. This is not our people. This is after he converted. This is how he looked after he converted into Christianity. Okay? Let's see what's up. King Alfonso I of Congo. King Alfonso I, born Nzinga Mbemba, was a ruler of the Kingdom of Congo who significantly influenced the spread of Christianity in Central Africa. Listen carefully. After converting to Christianity through Portuguese missionaries, aka mercenaries, he embraced the religion wholeheartedly. Listen to what's being said. He embraced the religion wholeheartedly. He adopted the name Alfonso in honor of the Portuguese king. Now here's an African king who converted into Christianity and then said, I'm going to not only convert into Christianity, I'm so real about my conversion that I'm also going to change my name to sound just like yours, Portugal. He actively promoted Christian values, constructed churches, and did what? Integrated Christian teachings into his kingdom's culture. Despite his dedication, his reign was marked by conflicts with the Portuguese over the burgeoning of the transatlantic slave trade, which he opposed but struggled to control. Now, this is a lie. Again, I wanna address the elephant in the room when I say this. Okay, now. To address the elephant in the room, because a lot of you guys are mainly Euro Christians, like to always say that black people had their hands in slavery. So let me address this. Black people did not have their hands in slavery the way these people are trying to pitch it. Our hands in slavery came with, this is what we did to prisoners, people that committed a crime. We had them as prisoners. Some people also was servants. And when we was trading criminals. We was also trading loyal servants. Okay? And through that process, after I give the hand over to you, whatever you decide to do with it, that's on you. And that's exactly what was happening. Okay, that was the beginning. All right. There was a lot of prisoners. There was a lot of law-breaking individuals. There was a lot of prisoners, and there was a lot of servants. And servants wasn't what you guys think today as slavery. Being a servant and a slave is two different things. A servant is treated with love, respect. He's treated just like everybody else. He or she sits at the table with everybody else. After they finish cooking and cleaning, they don't sleep in the gutter. They have their own area to rest their heads. This is what a servant is. A slave is your name being changed, your identity being lost, your family being broken up, you being shipped from this person, that person, you being violated in the process, rape, kidnap, etc. All that comes. That's what comes with slavery. There's a difference between slavery and being a servant. Okay? Just wanted to throw that out there. So that's how we had our hands within slavery. Let us continue. Okay? This is how he used to look prior to the conversion. This is literally a statue they got in Africa right now in reference in honor to the Nzinga. Okay, Nzinga is what we're gonna call him. Alfonso is the reason why the people in the Congo are still remaining down low, at the below, at the bottom, because of this man right here converting into Christianity. Okay, cool. Let us continue. Locations. Now, we got those that's claiming that they're from the Middle East. Okay, you got those that's claiming they from the Middle East. You got those that's claiming they from the center, right? You see where I marked the X? You got those up top. You got those right down below. Where do I want you guys to honestly ask yourself this question? Where do you think that we will or originate from? Okay. Now, for those that don't know about the Middle East, prior to the Middle East, okay, the Arabs was once called sand people because they come from dirt field. No disrespect, they come from the dirt field. Middle East is a dirt field. Okay, they whatever you see them doing for Dubai is the same thing that they doing in the Middle East. Okay, that's how that became what it was. Now you got to ask yourself that question. Do you believe, honestly believe, that colored people dwelt there in that type of inhabitants? I'll let you guys decide that. This is not for me to mislead or misguide anybody, because you know. So, debating the migration of the Israelites, Middle East versus South Africa. Let's read. It says, the migration of Israelites is traditionally understood to have started in Egypt, where they were enslaved, and their journey led them through the wilderness to the Middle East. Now, this wilderness conversation, I really want you guys to ask yourself this question. Who in their right mind will be walking 40 days, 40 years, 40 years back and forth, left to right? Now, I'm asking this. I'm asking this from a black man's perspective. Remember, according to the Biblos, we are the most stiff-necked nation on the face of this earth. So again, I'm gonna ask that question. 40 years? I mean, I'm gonna leave that for you guys to be the judge of that. But 40 years of walking round and round, round and round. I don't think we as people would have gave into that. I don't think no human being, personally, this is just my opinion, I don't think no human being will be giving themselves up to that. Let us continue. Okay? Throughout the wilderness to the Middle East, specifically to the land of Canaan, modern day Israelites / Palestine. This biblical narrative is widely accepted and supported by archaeological evidence. Now, it's being supported by archaeological evidence. Okay? However, some scholars and researchers propose an alternative theory suggesting that the Israelites may have traveled southward out of Egypt, eventually migrating into sub-Sahara. This theory is based on various cultural and linguistic similarities between the ancient Israelite traditions and practice found in certain African communities, such as the Limbo people in southern Africa. Now, these Limbo people remind me, Bantu Princess and Black Girl Magic, please remind me to bring this out, to elaborate more on these Limbo people, okay, who have been linked to Jewish customs and genetic markers. Debate primarily centers around the interpretation of biblical texts like Genesis 13, where God instructed Abram to go south. Some argue that this southward direction points to the borders migration into Africa, challenging the traditional Middle Eastern narrative. This alternative view seeks to connect African people to ancient Israelite heritage. Let me read that again. This alternative view seek to connect African people to ancient Israelite heritage, exploring the idea that some African tribes may have preserved these traditions for centuries. We're gonna dive more at the end of the show, people. Kings and kingdoms. So according to the Bible, we got King David. You got King Solomon. You got Hezekiah, and then you got the Menelik the first. I put the Hezekiah two times. I forgot who was supposed to be there. I think it begins with the J. I forgot the king's name, Jezebon or something like that. But that was supposed to be there. But these are the kings according to the Biblos. Okay, unified the tribes of Israel and established Jerusalem as the capital. This is King Solomon, known for his wisdom, he built the first temple in Jerusalem. A king of Judah, the Hezekiah, the king of Judah, remembered for his religious reforms and defiance against the Assyrian Empire, right? Then you got the Malachi the first. According to the Ethiopian tradition, the Menelik was the son of the King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. And this is somebody that I'm also going to look into because, like I've been saying for years, for a man like Solomon with all this wisdom, all this power, all these marriages, all these children, we should be able to trace back the seed of Solomon to some royal bloodline here in America. If this man has 700 wives, we have to be able to trace back King Solomon's lineage, DNA, to somebody. But we're going to leave that for now. Now, here's the kings and kingdoms of the South Africans. Okay? Now, we got Shaka Zulu, for those that don't know, a transformative leader of the Zulu kingdom in southern Africa, known for his military innovations. The Miwi Mutapa, 15th and 18th centuries, a title held by rulers of the kingdom of Mutapa, located in modern Zimbabwe and Mozambique. Okay? Then you got the Nzinga. The Nzinga, Queen Nzinga, thought a queen, her leadership and diplomatic strategies in Angola were instrumental in resisting Portugal colonization. Okay, then you got the Congologo Mawamba. Okay, founder of the Luba Empire in Central Africa. Now, these are kings that you can historically have information and also trace their lineage, their bloodline till this day. You can trace that blood. You can trace Shaka Zulu and his children and his family. You can trace the Mutapa. You can trace the Menzinga. You can trace these people till this day. But let us continue. Can we trace these biblical kingdoms in South Africa? That's the question. So this is where the black man is in dilemma. So here we got William S. Crowdy, who's bringing forth the Hebrew Israelite. Then on the right hand side, you got King Alfonso, who's bringing forth Christianity. Then you got Genesis 13 that got us thinking that we fled, we left Egypt and went south. Okay. Then you got the Mambri, South Africa. That's what the SA stands for. Where let Let me read this. Specifically, it was introduced by Christian mercenaries. Listen carefully, people. It was introduced by Christian mercenaries from the German Lutheran mission in 1908. These missionaries were the ones who began teaching that Mamre, the biblical location, was actually in South Africa. This is German Lutheran missionaries. Okay? Then you got the Limba people. The Limba people are a group of individuals who believe that they are the descendants of the biblical Israelites. And I'm going to dive more at the end, but we're going to keep this ball rolling. Pause. The El Kebulan kidnap, that's us. In summary, while some biblical scholars historically believe that the enslavement of black people was a result either disobedience to God or the curse of Ham. So these are all the things that we as black people have to think about every single day when it's pertaining to some level of religion. Okay? We got to process all of this. And this is just 6 of many more. Okay? Let us continue. Now we brainstorming. The idea of biblical names being placed on African locations outside of Egypt often stems from historical attempts. Listen, let's run that back. The idea of biblical names being placed stories, while there isn't a comprehensive biblical mapping of locations across all Africa, some African regions and cities were indeed given, listen carefully, was indeed given biblical names or association, especially under the influence of missionary and colonial activities. Below is a summary of some African locations that was given biblical names, including the time and who changed the names, as well as some original names were biblical names in Africa. Cape of Good Hope. Biblical name. They called it the Cape of the Ark. Early 16th century, around 1500. Who changed the name? The Portuguese, led by who? Bartholomeus Diaz, were the first Europeans to reach the Cape of Good. The area was intentionally referred to as Cape of the Ark in reference to Noah's Ark as a biblical symbol of what? Salvation. The original name is now widely known, but the indigenous group, including, I can't say that name, and Son, had their own name for the area long before European arrival. Now, for all my El Kebulan people that's watching in the El Kebulan right now, please let this be the homework for you guys to go find. I repeat, to go find the original name prior to Cape Town. What was the name before that? I gotta holler at my homegirl. Number 2, Zimbabwe, the great Zimbabwe. The biblical name, the kingdom of the sons of Solomon, or the sons of David. Okay? The time, late 19th century, missionary period, who changed the name. Missionaries influenced by the belief that the ancient Solomonic dynasty was linked to Africa, particularly Zimbabwe, named the region after the biblical King Solomon. Original name, Great Zimbabwe, named after the famous Great Zimbabwe ruins, the capital of the Kingdom of Zimbabwe. The name Zimbabwe is derived from Shana term, let me make sure I say right, Dizamba Daza Maui, meaning house of stone. Okay? Now, for those that's just now tuning in, we're literally just giving a breakdown of the biblical names in Africa, who put them there and who's changing the names. Okay? Now Mambri, okay? Biblical name Mambri, or Mamre, time 1908. The name Mambri was brought to South African by European mercenaries associated with Christian missionary movements in the 19th century. Specifically, it was tied to the Dutch Reform Church missionaries and other European Christian groups who were what active in the region. These missionaries were involved in doing what? Spreading Christianity and also in establishing religious settlements. Okay? All right? Let us continue. This is just food for thought. It says the Bible does not directly mention specific African kingdoms like the Zulu kingdom, Congo kingdom, the Luba kingdom, the Mutapa kingdom, or the Chewaki kingdom, as they were established much later than the biblical era. However, connections can be made through general biblical reference to Africa, like Ethiopia, and the various people groups that live in the African continent. Here's a breakdown of where you might find reference in the Bible that are linked to these regions through though thought not specifically to these kingdoms. Okay? Let us continue. Now this is the Zulu kingdom, southern Africa. Biblical references. Listen carefully. There is no direct mention of the Zulu kingdom in the Bible. However, some people believe that certain African groups, including the Zulu, may have historical connections to the what? To the descendants of Ham. Okay? It says some people believe that certain African groups, including the Zulu, may have historical connections to the descendants of Ham, particular to the context of what? Genesis 10, the tables of nations. Books to explore: Genesis 10, the genealogy of Noah. Isaiah 18 mentioned the people of the land of Cush and the southern nations, connecting some prophecies in the Bible, like connecting concerning Ethiopia, modern day Sudan, surrounding regions, or sometimes interpreted as referring the borders African people, including the Zulu, right? Congo Kingdom. Bible reference. The Congo kingdom is not directly mentioned in the Bible, but the reign of Cush, often equated with the modern day Sudan or Ethiopia, might indirectly refer to the border African continent. Books to explore. You got Acts chapter 8, 27 to 39, the story of the Ethiopian Enoch, who is from the region that may include the Congo area. That may include. This is not facts. That may include. Isaiah 18 and 1 prophesied about African nations. And we're going to look into this Isaiah 18. Including the Congo kingdom traces their origin to the biblical genealogy, specifically to Cush, which is referenced in the Bible. So they don't believe that they are the descendants of Shem. They believe that they are the children of Ham. Now, where did this ideology come from? You guys should already know that. Let us continue. The Luba Kingdom. The Luba Kingdom is not directly mentioned in the Bible, but like the Congo, is often associated with Cush or Ethiopia. Interpretations of biblical reference to Africa. Here, another one, Genesis, the book of the book of nations, right? Isaiah 11, okay? Zephaniah 3 and 10, okay? The connection, the Luba kingdom could be linked to biblical mentions of Kush or Ethiopia, even though the exact historical kingdom is not reference. Okay, the Mutapa kingdom, Zimbabwe again. Okay, is not mentioned in the Bible. Okay, the First Kings 10:1 to 13 is the story of Queen Sheba's visit to King Solomon. Isaiah 18:1. Okay, the connection the Mutapa kingdom may have linked to the Sheba story, as Zimbabwe historically associated with the Mutapa kingdom was known for the ancient trade cultural exchange similar to the biblical region of Sheba. Okay, let us continue. The Chewaki kingdom. There is no direct reference to the Chewaki kingdom in the Bible. However, the region, like others in Central Africa, could be linked to the biblical what? Cush and Ethiopia. I wonder why it's always Cush and Ethiopia. Again, Genesis 10, okay? Zephaniah 3 and 10, okay? The connection to Chewaki kingdom may be associated with ancient Cushite people whose descendants were often considered part of the broader African diaspora in biblical interpretations. Okay? All facts. Listen, while the Bible does not mention the Zulu, Congo, Luba, Mutapa, or the Chewaki kingdoms directly, there are connections through biblical reference to what? To Cush, Ethiopia, and the genealogies of the descendants of Ham. These references sometimes reflect the border African people and may be interpreted as linking to various African regions or kingdoms that rose later in history. That is all I'm putting for you guys. Thank you, and make sure you guys come again. Why is this thing taking so long just to transform? Yeah. So there you guys have it. You guys get a little preview. And this was nothing crazy. I just wanted to just put something out there just to open up the frequencies in the mind, open up the channels, you know what I'm saying? Ask these questions and also look into these questions, right? Now, the reason why I did that is a lot of us is pertaining to be the descendants of the Hebrew, and then there's a lot of us that's believing that we are the descendants of the people in the Bible. Now, I don't have no issues with what people want to believe. My issue is when you take a belief of yours and trying to impose it upon the people and have the people then to believe that what you're saying, what you're teaching, what you're bringing forth is facts. But facts must be backed by facts. You can't tell me something, and then when I ask a question, you will give me, let's just say, you'll give me Matthew 27, where it says, Ele, Ele, la sabatani. So because of Ele, Ele, la sabatani, you would then tell me that they took that from the Bantu scrolls. Now, my question after that, after you tell me it was taken from the Bantu scrolls, the next question will be, well, did you read the Bantu scrolls? Do you have any access to the Bantu scrolls? If you do not have access to this and you're pitching this to me, then this now becomes a belief and not a fact. And on the facts over belief, we bang the gavel. Where's my gavel? Where's my gavel? Should I bang the gavel? No punches? No punches. Should I bang the gavel? He said bang the gavel. So no, and no. Okay? So I did promise you guys I will be playing a video. And in this video, it will show a high level of contradiction within the Biblos. Let me start off by giving a big shout out to these brothers on the PG Bible TV for doing phenomenal works and, you know, putting everything that I've been saying in a video format. You know what was crazy? As I'm sitting today having a conversation with the Wiz early in the morning, this was probably like 6 o'clock in the morning, this video landed right in front of my hands. And the ancestor says, I want you to bring this out. And you know me, right? Right? Hey. No punches. Relax. You heard? He over here grilling. I'm like, why you looking like that? But I was told to bring it out, so I'm going to bring it out. So without further ado, people, grab yourself some popcorn, get you some wine. You might need it. And let's watch this video. Hold on. Let me pull this video out for you guys. We're going to watch this video together. Oh, come on. Oh, my bad, guys. This is what I'm...
Can you handle the facts? Are you over the beliefs? Are you tired of the lies? Have you uncovered what religion really is? Do you identify as an Alkebulan kidnapped? If so, then welcome to The Verdict, where we stand on facts over belief.
The Bible, revered by billions as the infallible Word of God, yet filled with inconsistencies, contradictions, and outright conflicting accounts.
So, again, my apologies. My joint acting stupid, but we're going to dive into it. Again, people, shout out to PG Bible TV. That's their YouTube. YTC stands for YouTube channel. PJ Bible TV. Subscribe to them, follow them. They got a whole lot of contradictional and also biblical information that can help elevate you guys as far as your studies go. But without further ado, let's go.
For centuries, believers have clung to its pages as a source of truth, while skeptics have pointed out the glaring flaws that undermine its credibility. Today we'll be looking at some of the top contradictions in the Bible, exposing the cracks in the foundation of this so-called holy book. If the Bible claims to be divinely inspired, it shouldn't contradict itself. Yet from conflicting creation stories to contradictory accounts of Judas's death, the inconsistencies pile up. Once you see these contradictions for what they are, you might just question everything you've been told. The Bible wastes no time getting its facts tangled. Right from the start, in the opening chapters of Genesis, we're hit with two completely contradictory versions of how humans were created. In Genesis 1, it's all laid out neatly. Over 6 days, God creates everything: light, sky, land, plants, animals, and finally, humans. On the 6th day, after making all the animals, God creates man and woman simultaneously in his own image. It's a nice, orderly progression: plants first, then animals, and finally humans to cap it all off. Now flip the page to Genesis 2, and suddenly the story shifts. This time, God creates man first, before any plants or animals. Man is made from dust, placed in the Garden of Eden, and then, God goes on to create the animals to keep him company. But none of the animals are quite good enough, so God puts man into a deep sleep, rips out one of his ribs, and uses it to fashion woman as a secondary creation. The order is totally reversed: man first, then plants and animals, and finally woman. These aren't minor details, they're fundamental contradictions in the sequence of creation. How do you reconcile this? You don't. Apologists will try to squirm out of it by claiming these are two complementary perspectives on the same event.
And this is exactly what these people do. Okay, they bring forth such contradictions, and like I said, when you read this book, How to Make a Negro a Christian, they gave these Negroes a bunch of rebuttal responses to these questions that brothers and sisters like myself, like yourself, would be bringing forth. So when you have those questions and you have those doubts, this is the things that these are the tools and the wordings that they use to lure you back in, to put you in a state or keep you in a state of hypnosis. Okay, so just be mindful for that. So let's continue.
But let's be real. Different perspectives don't change the order to be divinely inspired and infallible. If this were a science textbook, nobody would give it a pass for having two incompatible chapters on the origin of life. So why does the Bible, a text billions claim to be the Word of God, get a free pass for messing up its foundational story? If the Bible can't even get its creation story straight in the very first chapters, what does that say about the rest of the book? Simple. If you're looking for consistency, logic, or reliability, you won't find it here. Number 2 on our list of top contradictions in the Bible is the bizarre inconsistency regarding how many animals Noah was supposed to cram onto the ark. You'd think if God gave Noah specific instructions on how to save all life on earth, he'd at least be clear about it. But nope, we get two conflicting sets of instructions in the span of a few verses. In Genesis 6, verse 19 to 20, God tells Noah to bring 2 of every kind of animal onto the ark, 1 male and 1 female. That seems simple enough, 2 by 2, male and female, ensuring each species can reproduce after the flood. This is the version most people know, thanks to countless children's books and Sunday school lessons. But fast forward to Genesis 7, verse 2 to 3, and suddenly the rules change. Now Noah is told to take 7 pairs of clean animals and 2 pairs of unclean animals. 7 pairs? Where did that come from? Not only does this contradict the earlier 2 of each instruction, but it also raises an obvious question. How did Noah, who lived long before the Mosaic law defined clean and unclean animals, even know which animals were clean? This isn't just a minor inconsistency, it's a glaring contradiction that makes it clear these 2 versions of the story came from different sources, likely combined by later editors trying to stitch them into one narrative.
Hey, we gonna ask these questions, people. We gonna ask these questions. Let us continue.
The result? A confused mess that leaves anyone reading it wondering which version they're supposed to believe. And of course, apologists have their usual explanations. They'll claim Genesis 6 gives a general instruction and Genesis 7 provides additional detail. But that excuse doesn't hold water. Genesis 6 explicitly says Noah should take 2 of every kind, period. No mention of 7 pairs, clean animals, or anything else. It's like getting 2 different sets of blueprints for the same building. If they don't match, something's wrong. So what's the takeaway here? If a supposedly omniscient God can't even give consistent instructions for a life-saving mission that's central to the survival of the human race and every species on Earth, what does that say about the reliability of the rest of the Bible? Spoiler alert.
What does it say? Let us continue. And again, the reason why I'm popping myself in and out, because I have to let YouTube see that I'm using this for educational purposes. Educational purposes only. And I'm also shouting out the people that made this video. PJ Bible TV. Tune in, subscribe. These guys is dropping fire content. Fire. Let's continue.
Not much. Number 3 on our list of top contradictions in the Bible is yet another flood-related blunder. Apparently, God can't even keep his timeline straight when it comes to one of the most famous stories in the Bible. How long did the flood actually last? In Genesis 7 verse 17 it says, "For 40 days the flood kept coming on the earth." Simple, right? We all know the classic tale. 40 days and 40 nights of torrential rain, turning the entire world into a giant water park. It's a neat, memorable detail repeated in countless sermons and children's books. But then, just a few verses later, Genesis 7 verse 24 throws a curveball. The waters flooded the earth for 150 days. Wait, what? So now it's not just 40 days of rain, it's 150 days of flooding? Which is it? Did the flood last for 40 days? Or did the water stay around for 150 days? Apologists love to jump in with creative excuses, claiming that the rain lasted 40 days, but the floodwaters persisted for 150 days. Nice try, but that's not what the text says. Genesis 7:17 doesn't just mention rain, it clearly says the flood itself lasted 40 days. Yet a few lines later, it's suddenly dragging on for 150 days. That's not clarification, that's flat-out contradiction. This isn't a case of poetic storytelling or symbolic numbers. If you're claiming a literal global flood wiped out all life on Earth, the duration matters. You can't just throw in conflicting timelines and expect readers not to notice. Here's the thing. This inconsistency, like many others in Genesis, points to the fact that the flood story likely came from multiple sources, stitched together into one narrative. The result? A patchwork story that can't even agree on something as basic as how long the flood lasted. And if you're thinking, well, maybe it doesn't matter, consider this. If a divinely inspired book can't even maintain internal consistency in one of its foundational stories, how reliable can it really be when it comes to anything else? So, was it 40 days or 150 days? Who knows? But one thing's clear, when it comes to biblical contradictions, the flood story is a gift that keeps on giving. Number 4 on our list of top contradictions in the Bible takes aim at a big one, God's nature. Specifically, can anyone actually see God? The Bible can't.
Now, before we dive into that, I want you guys to understand that this is just a curiosity, eye-opener, questioning everything that was given unto the El Kebula kidnaps. Yeah, we're gonna look into these things, and we're going to, dissect it and process everything that these people throw at us. Everything. We're gonna dissect it. We want the eternal. I want to feel the bone marrow. Forget the bones. I want the bone marrow. This is what we need. This is what we want. This is the only thing that's gonna set us free. Facts over beliefs. Let us continue.
Seem to make up its mind on this crucial point. First, in Exodus 30, no one may see me and live. Pretty straightforward. If you see God, you die. God's holiness is supposedly so overwhelming that mere mortals can't handle it. This is the verse that's often quoted to emphasize God's otherworldly nature. But wait, flip back to Genesis 32:30, and we get something entirely different. Here Jacob wrestles with a mysterious figure all night, only to realize afterward that it was God. Jacob then says, I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared. Hold up. Didn't God just say seeing him would kill you? Yet Jacob not only survives, but claims to have looked God in the face. So which is it? This isn't a trivial detail, it's a core contradiction about God's nature. Apologists will do mental gymnastics to explain this one, often claiming that Jacob didn't literally see God, but instead encountered some kind of angel or divine representative. Others argue that Jacob saw a different aspect of God, whatever that means. But here's the thing. The text plainly says Jacob saw God and lived to tell the tale. It gets better. Exodus 24 verse 9 describes Moses, Aaron, and 70 elders of Israel seeing God and even sharing a meal in his presence. Yet somehow, they also survive. So much for no one may see me and live. These conflicting accounts reveal a deeper issue. Different parts of the Bible present wildly different conceptions of God. In one version, he's this untouchable, invisible being who can't be approached. In another, he's hanging out with humans, wrestling in the dirt, or having dinner. It's as if multiple authors, with different ideas of what God is, contributed to these stories without bothering to make them consistent. And let's not forget the most glaring problem. If God's word is perfect and inspired, why does it contradict itself on something as fundamental as whether people can even look at him? Contradiction 4 leaves us with one conclusion. Either God can be seen, or he can't. But the Bible once again can't seem to decide. Number 5 on our list of top contradictions in the Bible takes us to an outright theological mess. Who incited King David to take a census of Israel? Was it God or was it Satan? You'd think this would be an easy one to get right, but nope. The Bible gives two completely different answers. In 2 Samuel 24:1, it says, Again the anger of the Lord burned against Israel, and he incited David against them, saying, Go and take a census of Israel and Judah. So, according to this account, God was angry and directly caused David to take the census, which later results in a plague that kills 70,000 people. Charming, right? God incites David, punishes Israel for it, and then has David beg for mercy, classic Old Testament stuff. But hold on. Flip over to 1 Chronicles 21:1 and suddenly the story changes. Here it says Satan rose up against Israel and incited David to take a census of Israel. Wait a second. Wasn't it God in the previous version? Now it's Satan? Which is it? Did God do it or did Satan do it? Because those are two pretty different motivations, don't you think? Apologists often scramble to explain this one, claiming that God allowed Satan to act as his agent in the second account, but this explanation falls apart on closer inspection. The text in second...
I can't. I'm sorry, people. I'm sorry. Yo, no punching. Yo, you see what's going on here? You want to bang the gavel? He want to bang the gavel. Come on now. Is the Bible finally showing their true hands? Is the God of the Bible finally showing you guys who he is? Is the Bible finally showing the people exactly who we are? Huh? Yeah. I'm not, listen, look, check this out. I'm not even going to stress it. I'm just going to let it play. I'm not even going to stress it. We're going to continue. I'm not even going to stress it. Nope. Not even going to stress it. Absolutely not.
2 Samuel doesn't mention Satan at all. It directly says God incited David. There's no hint of a third party involved. Meanwhile, 1 Chronicles shifts the blame entirely onto Satan. These are not two complementary perspectives. They're outright contradictions.
And before I even let it play, how many of you guys knew about this? I mean, prior to hearing this right now, how many of you guys knew about this? I want you guys to put your response in the chat. I want you guys to put the response in the chat and let me know how many of you guys knew about this story right here. Let us continue.
It also raises another uncomfortable question. Why would God, who supposedly knows everything, deliberately incite David to sin, only to punish him for doing exactly what he was told? If it's Satan's fault, why didn't God intervene before thousands of people died? It's almost as if these stories were written by different authors with wildly different ideas of divine justice, and they never bothered to sync up their narratives. At best, this contradiction reveals sloppy editing. At worst, it shows a complete lack of coherence in the Bible's portrayal of God's character. Is he a just and loving deity, or a capricious figure who manipulates humans into sinning just so he can punish them? Whatever the case, one thing is clear. If the Bible can't even agree on something as basic as whether God or Satan was responsible for a major event, it's hard to take it seriously as a consistent moral guide. Number 6 on our list of top contradictions in the Bible dives into the gruesome end of Judas Iscariot, the infamous betrayer of Jesus. You'd think the Bible could at least be consistent about how this notorious figure met his end, but once again, we get two very different, irreconcilable stories. In Matthew 27 verse 5, we read that Judas, overcome with guilt after betraying Jesus, went away and hanged himself. End of story, right? Not quite, because Acts 1 verse 18 offers a completely different version. Here it says, "With the payment he received for his wickedness, Judas bought a field. There he fell headlong and his body burst open, and all his intestines spilled out." Wait a minute. Did Judas hang himself, or did he fall and explode in a field he supposedly bought with his blood?
Yeah.
Money? These aren't two perspectives on the same event. They're two entirely separate, mutually exclusive accounts of his death. Some apologists try to bridge this contradiction with a far-fetched explanation. They suggest Judas hanged himself first, but the rope eventually broke and his body fell and burst open. Creative? Sure. Plausible? Not really. The texts give no indication that these events are connected. They're clearly different stories with different details. Even more bizarre is the mention in Acts that Judas used the money to buy a field. But according to Matthew, Judas didn't keep the money. He threw it back at the chief priests, who then used it to buy the infamous potter's field. So now we have another contradiction. Did Judas buy the field himself, or did the priest buy it after he returned the money? These aren't trivial discrepancies. They expose the fact that the New Testament was written by multiple authors with differing traditions, and later compilers didn't bother to harmonize the contradictions. If the Bible can't even agree on how a central figure like Judas died, how can anyone claim it's a divinely inspired, inerrant document? At the end of the day, whether Judas hanged himself or exploded in a field, what's clear is that biblical authors couldn't get their story straight. And if they can't keep the details of one of the most significant betrayals in history consistent, it begs the question, what else did they get wrong? Number 7 on our list of top contradictions in the Bible is one that hits right at the heart of the New Testament: the genealogy of Jesus. The Gospels of Matthew and Luke both provide detailed family trees for Jesus, but if you line them up side by side, you'll quickly notice something's very wrong. These lineages are completely different. In Matthew chapter 1, Jesus' genealogy is traced through David's son Solomon, leading down through a line of kings to Joseph, Jesus' legal father. It's a royal lineage meant to emphasize Jesus' connection to King David and his right to the throne of Israel. But flip over to Luke chapter 3, and suddenly the genealogy takes a detour. Here Jesus' lineage is traced through David's son Nathan, not Solomon. And instead of kings, we get an entirely different set of ancestors leading all the way to Joseph, who, by the way, isn't even biologically related to Jesus according to Christian doctrine, since Jesus was supposedly born of a virgin. So which one is right? Did Jesus descend from Solomon, as Matthew claims, or from Nathan, as Luke insists? Apologists often try to wiggle out of this contradiction by arguing that Matthew gives Joseph's lineage while Luke gives Mary's lineage. But this explanation doesn't hold up under scrutiny. Both genealogies explicitly state they are tracing the line of Joseph, not Mary. Worse still, the two genealogies can't even agree on Joseph's father. According to Matthew, Joseph's father was Jacob. But in Luke, Joseph's father is listed as Heli, unless Joseph had two dads, which raises a whole different set of questions. This is yet another
Joseph had two dads. Joseph a Bate boy. He come from a Bate boy lineage. Michelangelo. Loverman, Mr. Loverman, Bate.
contradiction. The fact that the Gospels couldn't even agree on something as foundational as Jesus' family tree speaks volumes about the reliability of the New Testament. If these genealogies were supposed to prove Jesus' legitimacy as the Messiah by showing his descent from David, they failed spectacularly. Instead, they highlight just how inconsistent and contradictory the Bible can be, even when it's trying to establish key theological points. At the end of the day, this isn't just a minor detail. It's a central part of the Christian claim that Jesus fulfilled messianic prophecies. But with two incompatible genealogies, both can't be true. And if they can't even get this right, how can anyone trust the rest of the story? Number 8 on our list of top contradictions in the Bible is a major one: the time of Jesus' birth. You'd think the Gospels could at least agree on when the most important figure in Christianity was born. But nope, we get...
This is about to get real good, people. This is about to get good. Oh yeah.
two conflicting timelines that can't possibly be reconciled. In Matthew chapter 2 verse 1, we're told that Jesus was born during the reign of King Herod. Here's the problem. Herod died in 4 BCE. So according to Matthew, Jesus had to have been born sometime before 4 BCE because Herod plays a big role in the story, including the infamous massacre of the innocents. Now let's jump to Luke chapter 2, verses 1 and 2, which gives us a completely different timeline. According to Luke, Jesus was born during the census conducted by Quirinius, the governor of Syria. Here's the kicker. Historical records show that Quirinius didn't become governor and conduct his census until 6 CE, a full 10 years after Herod's death. So, was Jesus born before 4 BCE when Herod was alive, or after 6 CE when Quirinius conducted his census? These two timelines are separated by a decade, and both can't be true. No amount of theological hand-waving can fix this glaring contradiction. Apologists have tried all sorts of mental gymnastics to resolve this one. Some claim Luke's reference to the census is metaphorical, or that there was an earlier, unrecorded census under Quirinius. But these explanations don't hold up against actual history. The Romans were meticulous record keepers, and there's zero evidence of any earlier census during Herod's reign. Others try to argue that Luke simply got the dates wrong, which raises an obvious question. If Luke can't even get basic historical facts right, why should we trust anything else in his gospel? This contradiction is a serious problem for anyone claiming the Bible is historically accurate or divinely inspired. If the authors couldn't even agree on something as basic as when Jesus was born, it casts doubt on the entire narrative. Was Jesus born during Herod's reign or during Quirinius's census? The Bible can't seem to decide, and that's a problem. In the end, whether it's 4 BCE or 6 CE, what's clear is that biblical authors were less concerned with historical accuracy and more focused on spinning their own theological tales. And if they couldn't nail down the timeline of Jesus' birth, what else did they get wrong? Number 9 on our list of top contradictions in the Bible is another gem from the story of Judas Iscariot, this time about the infamous potter's field, bought with the blood money Judas received for betraying Jesus. The only problem? The Bible can't agree on who actually bought the field. In Matthew chapter 27 verses 6 and 7, we're told that after Judas threw the 30 pieces of silver back at the chief priests, they said, "It is not lawful to put them into the treasury, since it is blood money." So they took the money and used it to buy the potter's field as a burial place for foreigners. Simple enough, the priests bought the field, and Judas had nothing to do with it beyond returning the money. Now flip to Acts chapter 1 verse 18 and suddenly we get a totally different story. Here Luke writes, "With the payment he received for his wickedness, Judas bought a field. There he fell headlong, his body burst open and all his intestines spilled out." Wait, what? In this version, Judas himself buys the field, not the priests. How exactly does a dead man go out and buy real estate after throwing away the money? This isn't a minor discrepancy, it's a glaring contradiction. Either Judas bought the field, or the priest did. Both can't be true. Apologists will try to claim that Judas indirectly bought the field by returning the money, which the priests then used to make the purchase. But that's not what Acts says. It explicitly states that Judas bought the field with the money, not that the priests acted on his behalf. And let's not forget the added absurdity of Judas's death. In Matthew, he hangs himself. In Acts, he falls head first, and his body bursts open. So not only can't the Bible decide who bought the field, but it also can't agree on how Judas met his grisly end. This contradiction exposes a deeper problem. The Gospels and Acts weren't written by people collaborating to tell one consistent story. They were written by different authors with different agendas and sources. The result? Conflicting accounts that make it impossible to pin down what actually happened. So who bought the potter's field? According to Matthew, it was the priests. According to Acts, it was Judas. But if the Bible can't even get something as basic as a real estate transaction straight, how can it possibly be trusted to deliver absolute truth? Number 10 on our list of top contradictions in the Bible involves one of King David's elite warriors, Josheb-Basshebeth, also known as Jashobeam, because why have one name when you can have two? The Bible gives us two accounts of this mighty warrior's exploits, and surprise, they don't match. In 2 Samuel chapter 23 verse 8 it says, "These are the names of David's mighty warriors. Josheb-Basshebeth, a Tachemonite, was chief of the three. He raised his spear against 800 men whom he killed in one encounter." Impressive, right? One man kills 800 soldiers in a single battle. Superhuman, sure, but it makes for a great heroic tale. Now flip over to 1 Chronicles chapter 11, verse 11, and suddenly the story changes. This is the list of David's mighty warriors. Jashobeam, a Hachmonite, was chief of the officers. He raised his spear against 300 men, whom he killed in one encounter. Hold on. 300 men? That's a far cry from the 800 mentioned in Samuel. So, which is it, 800 dead or 300 dead? Unless the author of Chronicles forgot to carry a 5 in his calculations, this is a blatant numerical contradiction. It's not like we're dealing with an off-by-1 error here. The difference is a whopping 500 men. That's not a rounding mistake. That's a totally different story. Apologists might argue that these are two separate events, but that explanation falls flat. Both accounts are describing the exact same warrior performing the exact same feat, raising his spear and killing an absurd number of enemies in a single encounter. It's clearly meant to be the same story, just told differently by two authors who couldn't agree on the details. This contradiction highlights a broader issue with the Bible's historical reliability. If even basic battle statistics can't be trusted, something you'd expect to be pretty consistent, what does that say about the rest of the so-called historical narrative? It's obvious that the authors of Samuel and Chronicles were working from different traditions or sources, and rather than reconciling the numbers, they each ran with their own version. The result? A glaring contradiction that makes you question whether these stories were ever meant to be taken as literal history in the first place. So, was it 800 or 300? The Bible can't seem to decide. But one thing's for sure. If you're looking for factual consistency, you won't find it here. Number 11 on our list of top contradictions in the Bible revisits the tale of David's census, but this time we're focusing on who was responsible for inciting David to commit this so-called sin. If you've read the Bible, you'll know it can't seem to decide whether the blame lies with God or Satan. In 2 Samuel chapter 24 verse 1, it says, again,
Now, again, I gotta come in from time to time. I know you guys are just like, damn, all of this. And we, as the Alkebulan Kidnap, got a lot of homework to do when it's pertaining to such ideology. This doctrine right here, this Biblos right here, this right here just proves everything that I've been saying for the last couple of months. I know a lot of you guys, matter of fact, I'll save that for later. Let's continue.
the anger of the Lord burned against Israel, and he incited David against them, saying, "Go and take a census of Israel and Judah." According to this version, God was angry at Israel, so he stirred up David to take a census. Then, after David follows orders, God punishes him by killing 70,000 innocent Israelites with a plague. Talk about divine.
It seems like this God that's in the Biblos love killing innocent people, children, women, and Israelites. Listen, the God of the Bible killed more Israelites than Hitler did. So then, does that make God an anti-Semitic? Think about that. Let us continue.
Overkill. And now we turn to 1 Chronicles chapter 21 verse 1, and suddenly the story shifts. Satan rose up against Israel and incited David to take a census of Israel. Wait, what? So now it's Satan doing the inciting? How does that work? Did God wait?
You notice that he got the commandments in his hands, and you see the bowl that's right in the center. And you see that the people said, Aaron, give us a God so we can worship. I just thought I should just throw that out there.
Up one day and hand off his wrath duties to Satan? Or did the chronicler just rewrite the story to make God look better? This isn't a minor discrepancy, it's a fundamental contradiction about who caused the entire event. In Samuel, God is directly responsible for inciting David. In Chronicles, it's Satan's doing. These two versions can't both be true unless you're willing to twist logic into a theological pretzel. And here's where things get even messier. If we take the Samuel version at face value, it paints a picture of a God who incites someone to sin, only to turn around and punish them for it. That's not justice, that's entrapment. On the other hand, if we take the Chronicles version, we're left wondering how Satan, supposedly a rebellious fallen angel, has the authority to incite a king unless God allows it. Apologists love to claim that this is just a case of God allowing Satan to act as his agent, but that's not what the texts say. Samuel explicitly states that it was God's anger that led to the census, while Chronicles places the blame squarely on Satan. No amount of theological hand-waving can change the fact that these are two contradictory stories. So who really incited David? Was it God, in a fit of divine rage, or was it Satan, the cosmic scapegoat? The Bible can't seem to make up its mind, leaving us with yet another contradiction that exposes the inconsistency of its supposed divine.
Our face. Now, these contradictions again is the questions Stop looking elsewhere. Stay right here. Focus on the screen. Now, the contradictions in itself is what I've been trying to have you guys to understand. Now, a lot of you guys is gonna have your own biblical perspective. You're gonna have your own reasoning. All I'm asking is, whatever you provide, wherever you stand, okay, just please stand on the facts, please, because you know the things that I'm bringing forth, a lot of it can be disputed. So you got to bring forth these facts, man. Hold on. Shout out to my moderators, man. You guys are, you know what I'm saying? When you guys show up, my job is a whole lot easier. Uh-huh. What he says? My man said Allah is the one and true God. Allah is the only God for the Arabs. Just like Jesus is the God for the Christians, the Hebrews. We're not here for that. We want the God of the Al-Kebulans. What's the name of our God? And if you're black, what is our name? Go take yourself outside of the Euro-Christian, Arabic ideology, Abrahamic religion. Please pinpoint the name of your God. Because when I think of Jesus or Christianity, I instantly see European. When I think of Judaism, I instantly think of European. When I think of Islam, or when I think of Hindu, I instantly think of Arab. But what do I think of when I call on an African deity? Or why isn't there a study or a religion that allows El-Kebulan people to worship their gods? I would like to get on my knees and pray to an image that look like me. I would like to get on my knees and pray to an image that talks like me. I would like to do that too. Why I can't do that? Why I can't praise and give worship and honor to my ancestors, to my creators? Why can I not do that? Why must my understanding of me, my connection to the divine power, has to be in line with the religion that was imposed upon my people? Why it has to be that? Huh? So if Allah is the one true God, then, matter of fact, let me pull this up. We in the mood, right? We in the mood. Hold on. Let me pull this in. Because he said Allah is the one true God, people. Allah. Okay. Allah is the one true God. So let me share this with you guys. Of course, sis. You already know these things is made up, but for educational purposes, let me pull up this right here. Give me a second. Let me pull this up because I know I got it right here. There we go. He saved, download. The reason why my computer is moving slow is because my hard drive is filling up. I have another hard drive. I just gotta activate and start saving everything to it. You know, I've been lazy. I ain't gonna lie, man. You know what I'm saying? It's been a beautiful, beautiful winter. Yeah. Let me unlock this for you. Yeah, we about to work right now. Okay. So my man said Allah is the one true God. Okay. If Allah is the one true God, then let's talk about this. Let's talk about it. Islam, the cult. In order to be Muslim, you have to be willing to ignore all these facts about Muhammad. Allah is the true God. It says Muhammad married a child. This is a fact. We ain't going to dispute that. He suggested fondling children. This is a fact. I got all the records to prove this. He got caught having, you know what, with a slave in his wife's bed. He promised full-breasted, big, lustrous eye Horus in paradise. So when you die, you're gonna get a whole bunch of, I guess it's gonna be African hoes, all for you, right? Look, he promoted prostitution. He made it lawful for a Muslim man to have sex with a married woman. He said women has a deficiency in their minds and the majority of hell is filled with women. Let me bring that back one more time. He said women have a deficiency in their minds and the majority of hell is filled with women. He made racist remarks. Oh yeah, he used to talk bad about the El Kebulans. Oh yeah, go look these things up. Look, he owned and traded black slaves. He was bewitched. He was suicidal. He had no miracles. Oh, look at the one right here. He flirted with men. He was a sinner who died of poison. Okay, that's just one. This is just one. Let me put the other one for you guys. Let me put the other one. Why not? Since he's, Allah is the one true God. Okay. This is what goes on in Islam, people. This is what goes on. It says, don't kill a woman, don't kill an infant, don't kill the sick, don't betray, don't destroy.